Hello, I'm in Central Park enjoying the practically summer since it's the June the 12th or something like that. Anyway, I have a book. It's a good book. It's a memoir. It's actually an autobiography, really. It's by Dorsey, Nunn, and What Kind of Bird Can't Fly? So it's a memoir of resilience and resurrection, and that's exactly what it is. Because Dorsey Nunn had a pretty hard life. What he takes us through with the memoir, he was born in 1951, so Dorsey Nunn is the same age as I am. So I think he's a little older. He's 73 years old at the time he mentions in the book, because he's trying to find a replacement for what he's spent his career doing. But it goes back to his childhood, and his childhood in San Francisco, in the Bay Area. Through this book, I learned a little bit more about some of these Bay Area stuff. Like I don't know that much about California. I was in California, I think, once over 40 years ago, before I moved to New York 40 years ago. So it's been, I don't know, 42 years ago or whatever that I was in California. And I was in the Bay Area and Berkeley, I think, for a day or something, and I don't know if I went to San Francisco or not. I don't even remember. But at any rate, California is quite a mystery to me, and actually I kind of pity Californians. It seems like a pretty horrible place. LA is, beyond horrible, and as a view of a New Yorker, with all the automobiles, everybody has to drive, and driving in cars is part of this story, because to arrive in California, you get nice wheels. So that's what Dorsey ends up getting later, but that's way down the line in the story, because he starts out as a kid. His dad, a lot of kids in their family. He lives in Palo Alto, which is, sort of across part of the bay from San Francisco. I was looking at the map of all these things. There's a kind of a peninsula that comes out from California there, and San Francisco's up here. Let's see, this way. San Francisco's over here, and there's this peninsula. There's the Bay Area. Anyway, it's across the bay. So he's raised in this environment in California. His dad is a good worker. His mom starts a church. His dad is absent a lot because he's working so much, and 2 jobs or whatever he's doing for the 5 kids he has, and Dorsey, the only one that's surviving now. So Dorsey talks about his childhood and his actually first confrontation with the cops, in that his dad got him a banana bicycle, which I was like, I don't know about this story. It was like in the 50s, when he's like 9 or something, or young. His dad gets him a bicycle, and it's described as kind of one of those banana seat bicycles, the smaller ones where the big handlebar. And unless the description is not correct, I don't really think they had those kind of bikes back then. Be that as it may, the cops pull over and harass Dorsey and his buddy, and look at the serial number on the bike, and take the bike. So they take the bike because it's been stolen. And yeah, maybe the bike had been stolen, and his dad bought it from the person that stole it, or bought it some 33, that's the kind of thing that happens in cities. You can end up with a bike that was stolen by somebody else, and you buy it from somebody else, and then ultimately, well, it's still stolen, whatever. So except in New York, I don't think they go around picking up people for stealing bikes. Well, he wasn't arrested, so it goes on, and he into the 60s, into growing up, and into hanging out with his friends, and using a little bit of pot and so forth, and I think he gets involved with heroin. His main issue is when he was 19 years old. He and his buddies go into a liquor store, and then someone else, a white person, comes into the liquor store, and the proprietor decides to serve the white people first, and this enrages the young, 19-year-old black kids from the hood there, and ends up being like a robbery, and the guy, the proprietor of the store, gets shot and killed. So it's a horrendous, botched, idiot kids doing this crime. So he ends up not being the shooter, but also not being a squealer, not being someone who turns in turns in someone else, which is what we don't do. So he ends up getting sentenced to a life in prison, actually, for this, and has his mom testify. He's very, very upset later that he has his mom testify that he was actually home when she knows that he wasn't. So she lied in court under oath to protect her son, which is natural thing to do. But it was not ultimately true, and ultimately swear on the Bible, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yeah, and so he ends up in San Quentin, and he talks about the life in San Quentin, the life in the hole, and it so happens that this happens in 1971, I think, so 69, 71. So it happens in a time where the Black Panther Party in the 60s was very active in the Bay Area. It was created in Oakland. So there were all these, black radical guys in San Quentin at that time. And they were like smart, and they were like reading books. And he talks about how they would smuggle books. So he got into the study of the books, and into the black radical movement of the day, and actually I think that is what ultimately saved his life and gave him hope. He found hope in the movement, in hoping, in working for change with the radical black Marxist agenda of Black Panthers and other sorts of parties of like that, and met these people in prison, and learned. They did a lot of reading. He talks about how they smuggled books, how somebody would write in longhand copies of the books and fold it up in a little piece of paper and ricochet it off the walls, and okay, and where's the next chapter? So all these sorts of means of smuggling in the lockdown situation in prison, and that's great. Smuggling literature that gives you hope. This is what we want. This is not the smuggling of heroin that's brought in by the guards, which goes on too. So he actually becomes a pot dealer, and speaking of smuggling, he becomes a pot dealer in prison on a low level, and knows this other guy, Al, who's the big pot dealer, who was later released, and they become sober buddies in the end. So, it's all this stuff about him being in prison and talking about being in solitary confinement and what that's like. I mean, what they do to people and then put them back out in the street and hope that they're like better. It doesn't make you better to be in solitary confinement for a couple of years. It just makes you insane, and as well as dealing with the other sorts of abuse by guards. And so, the guards are kind of permitted to like beat up on people and start these sort of gladiator fights in San Quentin. Start set one side against the other. Set the he breaks down the different types of gangs. There's the Alien Brotherhood. The Aryan Brotherhood, the white dudes, white fascist dudes. There's this Southern Mexican gangs, and there's Northern Mexican gangs that are different from the Southern Mexican gangs. So these are all these players in here, and the guards and the prison authorities would set these people against each other, get fights going on, and then shoot machine guns or whatever to stop them. And all this is going on at the same time that Attica is in New York. He mentions the Attica uprising that ended up slaughtering all these prisoners as well as the guards. So you talk about going in and killing everybody, including the hostages. Well, that's what happens sometimes in a situation like this. So the first part of the book is all these youthful struggles, and finally he does get out of prison after 11 years. So this brings him up to around 1980, around there. So he's finally out, and he starts working for the people who assisted him. He had a lot of assistance by the white radicals of the day. There was a non-governmental radical sort of organization that was operating with legal services for prisoners right outside the right there in where San Quentin is. Like they had a house right there in the neighborhood. So he ends up kind of moving into that house when he gets released from prison and working for these people in helping the struggles of prisoners. So that works out really fine. I mean, these are the people that helped him, and he's good at allowing people to help him and submitting to that, and also working to help others. I mean, that's one of the traits of Dorsey here, is that he becomes really conscious of the community and how important the community is for himself, for his safety, for everyone else. And this is not a story of rugged individualism here. This is a story of what you can do with community organizing. So he has a stumble. He ends up getting, the crack thing was going on into the 80s then, late 80s, and he ends up being a crack addict for a while and gets busted on that, and fortunately gets off on that one and ends up going to a rehab instead of going to prison. He talks about, in the earlier part, about how the environment of prison is constantly changing. California, another wacky thing about California is they have these propositions. So they put stuff on the ballot like, oh, you want more, anti-crime stuff. So they put this anti-crime thing, and then, ends up brutalizing the prisoners with, now they can't do this, now they can't do that, now they can't do this. Got the weights removed. Like everybody was bulking up with weights in the 60s. Got those removed. Got this and that removed. So, how much they could visit, all these things that the waves of propositions that change things over the years, And he said, you know, and really, and when he was in the early 70s, there was kind of the golden era when they had a little more freedom and a little more ability to do things than what came much later in, you know, what came later. So, and you know, with yeah, national things too, like I was listening, there's this clip going around now of Biden, now that his son has been convicted for a crack thing. I mean, you can see this clip, I might put it into the edit here, of Joe Biden talking in 1991, you know, in Congress or whatever, in Senate, about crack cocaine, and you know, do I have a quarter? And he pulls out a quarter, and for if you get caught with this amount of crack cocaine, you're going to go to prison for 5 years. So, you know, and
since 1986, Congress has passed over 230 new or expanded penalties for drug and criminal offenses in this United States. 230 new penalties. And these penalties range from an automatic 5 years in jail for any person caught with a rock of crack cocaine, a piece of crack cocaine as small as a quarter. I don't have a quarter with me, but if you visualize what one looks like, yeah, I do have a quarter. If you have a piece of crack cocaine no bigger than this quarter that I'm holding in my hand, 1/4 of $1, we passed a law through the leadership of Senator Thurmond and myself and others, a law that says if you're caught with that, you go to jail for 5 years. You get no probation, you get nothing other than 5 years in jail. Judge doesn't have a choice. Now, the fact of the matter is, we've gone from there all the way up to saying, under the leadership of Senator Thurmond, and I'd like to suggest that I take some small credit for it myself as well, and others, the presiding officer, that there is now a death penalty. And we passed it a couple years ago. If you are a major drug dealer involved in the trafficking of drugs and murder results in your activities, you go to death. And a number of other severe penalties. We changed the law so that if you are arrested and you are a drug dealer, under our forfeiture statutes, you can, the government can, take everything you own. Everything from your car to your house, your bank account, not merely what they confiscate in terms of the dollars from the transaction that you just got caught engaging in. They can take everything. We have laws in the last several years where we don't allow judges discretion to sentence people. Flat time sentencing. You get caught, you go to jail.
The crack laws were many times worse than the powdered cocaine laws, which ended up putting a lot of black people in prison due to Bill Clinton and Joe Biden, all these liberal so-called liberal right-wing Democrats that we're supposed to be supporting and that we're not supporting anymore. A lot of us, I tell you that much. So things are changing. At any rate, the book is really a book about struggle, about organization, about the hard work of changing things and what goes into that. You know, where the first part of the book, the story is about, you know, this and that and getting caught and being in prison and all that, are kind of more sort of a narrative structure that we're used to dealing with, whereas the stories of being working for change are I should have put my wind shield on the mic. To do things to make change is less exciting as a story if you're reading it you know, on a timeline. Like something doesn't happen, a hero doesn't sweep in and everything is fixed. It's all about letter writing. It's all about organizing. It's all about talking to people. It's something that takes years to build and years to do, and that is the courage, and that is the dynamic abilities of people like Dorsey, and that's why they are, great Americans to bring change, and over time, and to keep working at it. He got a job doing this. The legal services for prisoners and children, I think, is the name of the organization. He ends up working for many years and becomes the director of. So he keeps rising and bouncing back, and these things that work with prisoners formerly incarcerated, they're really important. They're organizations, because there's so many people that get put into prison, and then they toss them out with $200, and that's it. So the issues that they're dealing with is, well, the slavery in where you work for $30 a month or something, every day, for no wages, for a lot of times for like corporations and so forth. They contract, these prisons contract out the work, and he talks about how in several documents, official documents, including the Constitution, slavery is illegal except for punishment of prisoners. So he talks about how that has been changing in a lot of states due to the work of his organization and organizations like him nationally. He also talks about ban the box. So anybody that's been arrested for whatever felony, put in jail, you come out and look for a job. There was a box on the application. Have you been arrested for a felony, whatever? So that, check the box. That ends the whole transaction. You're done. So you might as well. And they want to hold off on that till later, till after you're interviewed, till after they find out what you have, what your qualifications are, what you can contribute to the organization, and then maybe be dealing with the issue of what happened with that, instead of this simple box thing where you're just this kind of binary thing, on off, the box out. Voting rights for prisoners. A lot of states, while you're in prison, you can't vote. While you're on probation, you can't vote. So they worked for years to work with these organizations about how we can allow these people to vote. And he talks about like the Gore Bush election in 2000 in Florida that was right, anybody remember back then, the hanging chads, and it went into the Supreme Court to decide and so forth. There were really issues, particularly in Florida, about the closeness of the race, and that's when they blamed our great man, Ralph Nader, for putting Bush in, which is not true. The Supreme Court put Bush in. So he also, and the restriction of allowing prisoners or people who have been imprisoned to vote in Florida. So all the, 1 million people are off the unable to vote, and that could have all changed the whole picture. So so that's the story of the book. I thought it was really good. I'm glad I read it. This is another book that I'm aware of because of Robert Scheer and Joshua Scheer, is that his son's name? Who from listening to the Scheer Intelligence podcast, where Dorsey was interviewed a few weeks ago. So I thought, oh, well, that sounds interesting. I wonder if I can find the book. And it was in my library. It's from Heyday Books. Once again, I got the book right away from the library. It's April 2024, was just released. So you know, once again, I get these books too quickly because, you know, not enough people are reading. So New York Public Library people, you know, we got library books for you. I hope people are buying the books so people continue to print books like this. I mean, I'm a little worried about the future you're all going to have to live in. So tune in next time and we'll talk about another book. And thank you for watching.